What's up, my pre-calc people? In this video, we're going to be going over the third free response question from the 2026 AP Precalculus exam. Now, this was a trigonomic modeling problem where we were trying to model a real-world scenario about a water wheel spinning around using a sinusoidal function. All right, let's dive into each of the three parts of this question so you can see exactly what you needed to get for full credit. FRQ number 3 was our trigonomic problem. The figure shows a circular water wheel that rotates at a counterclockwise direction at a constant rate and completes 1 revolution in 10 seconds. At time t equals 0, point W on the edge of the water wheel is at a height 6 feet directly above the center. So we know that that point W starts right here. All right, the height of the W from the horizontal line through the center of the water wheel periodically increases and decreases. So what we're measuring is the height that W is from the center. So it starts off 6 feet above, and notice as it goes this way, it's going to get closer and closer to that center, and at some point it's actually going to be below the center until it reaches its minimum where it's going to be 6 feet below. Now, here's the most important part that you had to make sure you read. The sinusoidal function h models the height of point W from the horizontal line through the center of the wheel. So we're looking at this center right here. Positive values of h of t indicate that we are above the center line. A negative value, h of t, indicates W is below the line through the center. So we are going to be dealing with positive and negative values. All right, so part A says, all right, so here is a graph of 2 full cycles, and they want us to label the points F, G, J, K, and P. Now, to properly label these points, we need to get a couple of really important pieces of information from the description. So here is what I gathered as the most important piece of information. First, when we are at that max, we are plus 6 feet above the center. When we're at that min, we're going to be a negative 6 because it said negative values are below the center, which means the midline is 0 because the midline is right in between your max and min. So if you add your max and min, you get 0. Divide by 2, you get 0. Now the amplitude is 6 because the amplitude is how far you are up or down from the midline. So if the midline is at 0, we go up 6 or down 6. And the other important piece of information that we start at time t equals 0 at the max. That allows me to know where I need to start that 0 at. And then finally, the period. We were told 1 rotation every 10 seconds. And remember, period is always time over rotations. So if we have 10 seconds for 1 rotation, then boom, our period is 10 seconds, which actually makes this question really, really simple. All right, so let's start taking a look at how we're going to create this graph. So first, we're going to start right up here at F. That's where we're going to have our 0. That's pretty easy, right? Now, the other thing that I want to make sure I teach you guys real quick is how do we figure out the x coordinates or the t coordinates, right, for G, J, K, and P? Well, I like to think about taking the period and multiplying it by a 4th. That's because every point is a 4th away. So if we do 10 times a 4th, we get 10 fourths, which could reduce to 5 halves. That's going to help me find all of the points really, really quickly. So here is me walking through that. First, let's talk about the max and mins. Maxes are both at 6, mins at negative 6, which puts the midline at 0. Okay, that's pretty easy. Then remember, we started at 0 at the max. So this had to be that 0. You could have put the 0 right here, but I wouldn't recommend that because then everything behind it is going to be negative and that wouldn't make any sense in the real world. Now, here's what I was talking about, right? We did that period times 1/4 to get 5 halves. So that means to find the t coordinates, I'm just simply going to keep adding 5 halves. So 0 plus 5 halves, 5 halves. Another 5 halves, 10 halves. Another 5 halves, 15 halves. Another 5 halves, 20 halves, which makes sense because 20 halves is 10. So it takes 10 full seconds to go all the way around, starting at the max, going back to the max. Now, those answers right there on your screen are fully countable. You don't even have to reduce them, but it does make sense to reduce them. So, obviously this right here was 10 halves, so we can reduce that to 5. That makes a lot of sense. That also makes sense, right? The whole thing takes 10 seconds. J right in the middle is going to take 5 seconds. But then this is a 5 halves, and this is a 15 halves. Those are obviously non-reducible. But you also get full credit if you do make them decimals because they are terminating decimals. So if you recognize that 5 halves is 2.5 seconds, then another 2.5 seconds takes me to 5 seconds. Another 2.5 seconds takes me to 7.5 seconds. And another 2.5 seconds takes me to that 1 full period back to my max of 10 seconds. All right, so that's how easy it is to get those points for F, G, J, K, and P. Hopefully you made sense of that. All right, now for part B, we want to actually have the sinusoidal function, and this is where you have to pay attention to details. It was a sine function, not cosine, because that could make your answers very, very different. And we want to find the values of A, B, C, and D in that equation. All right, so let's show you two options. I'm going to start at G. Now, because it's a sine function, you have to start at a midline. You cannot start at F, J, or P, because that would be if it was a cosine function. So if I start right here at G, let me think about my values. All right, first, my midline's the easy part. It's 0, so that's my D value of 0. That's pretty straightforward. Next up, I need to think about my B value. And this is where I got to do a little bit of math, right? The formula for a period is 2 pi divided by B, and we know that the period is 10. So I do have to do a little bit of math to solve for B. Don't put 10 for B because that's not true. So I'm going to multiply the B over to here, and then I'm going to divide both sides by 10 to solve for B, and I get pi over 5 for B. So my B value is pi over 5. All right. Now, because I'm starting at G, that is a horizontal translation, right 5/2. And anytime you move horizontally to the right, that needs a negative C value. So my C value is going to be negative 5/2. And finally, A value. Now, the absolute value of A is my amplitude, so I know that my A value is going to be a 6, but I need a reflection. Traditionally, sine goes up first, then to its min, then back to the midline. I'm going down first, up to the max, back to the midline, so I do need a reflection across the midline, which is why I need a negative on that A value. So if you started at G, these will be your A, B, C, and D values. Hopefully that all made sense. Now, I know I showed the work to find that value, but I wanted to kind of show it a little bit neater right here for B, because sometimes my work can be messy. But there's me solving for B to get the pi over 5. Now, real quick, you could also start at K. If you start at K, you're looking at one full sine function as this right here, starting on the midline, up to the max, down to the min, back to the midline. Now, our D value is still 0. That's the midline. The B value is still pi over 5. That is your B value that stems from the period. Now, because I'm now starting at K, I'm starting right 15/2, so my C value would be negative 15/2 or negative 7.5 if you want to have that decimal. But it does have to be negative because it is a positive value, which means it moved to the right, so I need to have a negative on that C. Now, this time my A value, is going to be a positive 6. I do not need the negative because it does do the traditional up first, then down, right, which is what it does without a reflection. So I do not need a reflection across my midline, so my A value would stay positive. So if you started at K, these would be your final answers for A, B, C, and D. Now, I really can't see any other starting position. You could start right here, and that would be negative 5/2, comma, 0, and that would be okay if you did label that point. You didn't have to label because it's not F, G, J, or K, or P. But if you did understand that that's the value of that point, then you're going to have an A value of positive 6 because it goes up first. Your D value is going to be 0. The midline is still 0. Your B value is going to be pi over 5. And your C value could now be a positive 5/2 because it's starting left. It's going left, which is going to be a positive C value for that horizontal translation. So that would be another option if you did recognize that. All right, that's it for part B. Now let's move on to part C. Part C had two parts, single I and double I. All right, so single I is saying, the entire question is asking you to look at J to K, the interval J to K, and they're saying let the T coordinate for J be T1 and the T coordinate for K be T2. Now, single I says, all right, over that interval from J to K, T1 to T2, which of the following is true about H? Now remember, H measures the height of the point W on that water wheel, right, from the center line. And then double I wants us to explain the concavity over that interval and determine if the rate of change is increasing or decreasing. So let's do single I first. Single I has nothing to do with concavity, has nothing to do with the rate of change. They're simply saying, hey, from J to K, what is the function doing? They describe the function. Well, first, it's increasing, right? It's going from -6 to 0. The heights are going from -6 to 0, and if you go from -6 to 0, you're going up. And you can clearly see in the graph, it's going up. But we also see that those values are negative. So -6 to 0 with parentheses, right? They did say that we're looking, from T1 to T2, but not brackets. We're not talking about T1 and T2. We're talking about in between them, the values are negative. So we want to make sure we choose that answer negative and increasing, and make sure you write it down, right? Don't just write down C on your paper. Hopefully you wrote down negative and increasing, right? So we're negative and increasing. That's what the function values are doing. Now for double I, we're talking about the rate of change. So in that interval j to k, the graph is concave up. Hopefully you could see that, which means that the rate of change is increasing. So for this one, to get full credit, you had to have concave up and the rate of change is increasing. So if we think about those rates of change, they're more and more positive, which is why the rates of change are increasing. And literally that's the definition of concave up, is that your rates of change are increasing. So you would need to have both concave up and rate of change increasing. A nice little sentence just like I have here to get full credit for that problem. All right, that's it for FRQ number 3. Hopefully you guys did really, really well.